Hello, 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 everyone. It's Amanda with the Content Marketing Institute. Thank you once again for joining us for today's live stream. And you can find us here pretty much every Monday at noon. We took a little break last week, but we're back with our Ask the CMWorld community live stream. And we have such a great community of influencers and experts. So we really wanted to tap into their experience and their insight and share it all with you on our live streams. And today we have a really extra special guest, which I'll get to in a moment. If you don't know what the Content Marketing Institute is or does, we are the leading training and education organization for all things content marketing. We have two great events, the Content Tech Summit, which is coming up in June, the first week in June. It's an all-digital event. And then our signature event, Content Marketing World, which is September 28th through October 1st. And you can find more info on that at contentmarketingworld.com. All right, so if you're joining us and you join us every week, you know I'm going to ask you, drop me a line, say hi, let me know in the comments where you're joining us from. Cleves already says it's already such a suspenseful event, so our live stream. So we'll see if we can keep that up. So today's topic, do you create content? Like say a blog or a podcast or a video series, but you really need help taking it to the next level. So you know that you maybe can quit your real job and make some real money on it. So today we are joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Joe Pulizzi, to talk about his newly updated book, Content Inc. And he's going to share us some tips on how to turn your content hobby into a real profitable business. So everybody get your questions ready. We're going to have a great half hour here. Right, Joe?
Well, thank you for the wonderful introduction. I'm honored to be here. I mean, you've been doing these for so long and I never got the invitation. And finally, you invite me to be on one of these. So thank you. It's great seeing you.
Yeah, you were at the bottom of our list. We were just, trying to get through all the other people first.
At least I made the list. And I'm glad a lot of those people couldn't show up because here we are.
Well, normally I start out by having a question of the day to sort of start our engagement here. But I thought today I'd ask everyone who's watching, if you have a content venture that you're working on, like I said, a blog or a video series, and you want to share it, why don't you drop a link to it in our comments so we can all see what you guys are working on and you can share it with us. Maybe it's like a little passion project you have, or maybe it's even part of your content marketing program at work, but you're super proud of it. Feel free to drop a link so we can all kind of see what you guys are working on. So I see Michelle from Chicago is checking in. We have Andy. Hi, Andy. She was on a few weeks ago, of course. Carla, Fatma, can I ask you how to write the right content for the right product? We'll get to that question in a little bit.
There you go.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. So as I said, Joe, if you know anything about the history of the Content Marketing Institute, he is the founder of the company 10 plus years ago. He's got a new endeavor now called The Tilt. It's a digital content news site. Of course, he's an Amazon bestselling author. And in fact, as I said, he updated his book, Content Inc., which we are going to talk about today. And by the way, he produces 2 podcasts. He runs a nonprofit. Like, really, is there anything you can't do, Joe? Can you tap dance?
I have, you know this. I have a lot of help. I can't do a lot by myself, but we have a wonderful team of people. And that Amazon bestseller status, you worked on almost all those books. So thank you.
Tiny part of that. A tiny part of that.
Big part
thank
of that.
you.
Thank you. Yes.
We see Charlotte from the UK joining us. Annie. We have someone from Brussels saying hello.
All right.
So
nice.
Denmark, India, Iran. So we have people from all over. And as I said, Carla dropped her little blog, a link to her blog post in the comments. So we're asking you if you have a content venture that you're super proud of, a passion project, feel free to drop us a link and share it with all of us so we can see what you guys are working on. So let's get to grilling Joe. All right. First question. The first edition of Content Inc., which I have behind me, came out in 2015. So why 6 years later did you decide to update it now?
Well, and you know the story, but for those of you that don't know the story, so I took a sabbatical year, 2018, took that year off, and then right after that, I decided to write a novel. By the way, the main character of the novel, The Will to Die, that we wrote, it stars a marketing person, so content marketing person. Who knew? So we created the book, and I loved it. It actually did fairly well, and I said, "Mom, I think this is my thing. I think I'm going to be a novelist now." And then, of course, COVID-19 hit, and everything seemed to change. And Amanda, during that time, and what was it, probably mid-March, because we just had the book launch for The Will to Die, and then I started working on the next edition of The Will to Die. And like the middle of March, I started to get a bunch of emails from people who'd lost their jobs, who were really struggling, couldn't, trying to build their platforms, make some money at it. And I started to get little notes about the Content Inc. model, the one that you and I worked out in 2015. How do I deal with what's going on with the pandemic? How do I build an audience? How do I find my content niche? How do I monetize all those things? And I just thought it was really strange, man. I'm like, okay, this book is 5 years old now, but there seems to be a resurgence and of course, I started really getting involved in doing a lot of research in what I'm calling content entrepreneurs, content creators that really want to make a sustainable business out of this thing. And I thought, okay, now is the time to redo this book and go and find some new case studies and see if this thing really exists, this model that we came up with 6 years ago, if it's still a thing. And emailed my friends at McGraw-Hill Education. I said, I think we should redo this book. Worked with a lot of friends at CMI and said, okay, let's put this thing together. And of course, now in the next couple of weeks, the book will be released, Content Inc., which is a new version. And we went through, boy, it seems like over 100 different case studies and examples of what does it take to build a loyal audience? How much time does it take? What platform should I choose? How do I monetize? All the things that I'm sure the people here, we want to talk about some of those things. But honestly, Amanda, this was an accident. If the pandemic didn't happen, I probably would be working on my third novel right now and not focused back in. They keep bringing me back. I'm back in the content marketing game, but instead of really what I was focused on at Content Marketing Institute is focusing on enterprises. Now I'm focusing on the small content creator, the small business, and how they can actually create a content platform and monetize that platform.
To say what, for people who aren't familiar with it, didn't read the original book, what is sort of the essence of the Content Inc. model? Multi-step process.
Sure. I mean, so when we started out and figuring out the model, we used Content Marketing Institute as the core example of it. And what I wanted to know was, is it possible to build an audience first instead of launching a product like most companies do? And then once you build a loyal audience, then can you sell products and services or monetize however you want? And that's what we did with Content Marketing Institute. We launched the blog. We basically did the blog for 22 months. We added in some research, and of course the model blew up and everything came together for CMI. And I said, are there other CMIs out there? Mm-hmm. So we started to unearth all these examples. And what we found out after we reverse engineered all these models is, yes, there is a thing. You can choose an audience, you can find a content niche, you can build your platform, build your base, build an audience first, and then it generally takes 12 to 18 months to really find a core monetization. Then you have something, then you've actually built that, started that content empire. And what we talk about in the book, and this is not revenue figures, but what we've sort of seen is when we look at all these examples that are out there, from going from zero to whatever, multi-millions of dollars, seems to be about 5 years. 5 years from start to getting to that 5-6 year mark. We believe that you can have a valuation of between $2 and $5 million. So I really do believe in the model. It takes patience. Mm-hmm. It takes time, grit, resilience, whatever words you want to use for that. But absolutely you can get there. But we can talk about this. You have to make some decisions on strategy up front so you can be successful doing that.
Annie says, building audience first, then launch that unique product, of course. Lavdim says, yep, you created the authority first and go from there. So you talk about this in this book is, you make a distinction, and you mentioned this, between a content gig worker versus a content entrepreneur. So, because just a plain old content creator. So, what's that difference?
Well, this is actually why, thank you for mentioning the Tilt. This is why we launched the Tilt, which is basically a 2-time e-newsletter focused on helping to turn content creators into content entrepreneurs. And this is what I found. I know you've done a lot of interviews around this, Amanda, too. There's so many people creating content. If you look at the number of businesses being launched today, they don't have it categorized a certain way, but I would say probably one of the fastest growing businesses is that of a content creator, somebody that's trying to create a sustainable business. The problem is everyone, I don't say everyone, a lot of content creators that start this, they're starting it as side gigs, side hustles, contract work, whatever the case is, which is fine. But what we're trying to do is reposition this and say, a content creator, you're doing it as something on the side. It is not a main part of your business. You've got a YouTube channel, you got a blog, you got a podcast, you're making some revenue. That's fine. You could, but what do we want to do? What we want to do as content creators is build a sustainable business, become financially independent, financially free, whatever you want to call it. That's a content entrepreneur. This is your first priority. This is your thing now. This is not a side gig. And I'm trying to ban, kind of one of my goals, Amanda, is to ban this whole side hustle term. It's not that the term is wrong. It's the mentality. Because if you're a content creator and you're coming in and saying, this is my side hustle, it means it's not a main part of what you're trying to do. And as you know, even if you're in content marketing in an enterprise or you're a content entrepreneur trying to do this thing, you've got to be thinking about your audience's needs, your audience's pain points every minute of the day, because you're going to get up the next day and say, what content can I create to make their lives better in some way, help them with their jobs in some way? That's what we've got to focus on. So that's the difference. Content creator, you're still in the hobby mode. Content entrepreneur, this is your business. This is a sustainable business. And even for enterprises, if you're thinking, you don't have to be a content entrepreneur just by yourself. You could be an entrepreneurial startup within a larger enterprise, but you have to focus on this as your main thing and not as a small side project.
Right. Kamir says, nail it before you scale it. I love that.
Yep. Good point.
Carla says, I'm doing that with my blog, finding the audience, then launching the books in June 2021.
All right.
But she speeded up the timeline. We got a shout out for the Tilt newsletter, which you can find at, thetilt.com.
Thetilt.com. Yep.
You can go there and subscribe to it. Speaking of the tilt, so I want to talk a little bit about this idea of the content tilt, which is part of your process in the book. Such an important part of the model because it led you to forming this business called the Tilt. So can you talk a little bit about it?
So, we've been working with at CMI, how many enterprises did we work with and figure out they're not doing it quite right? Everybody got onto the content marketing bandwagon. It was great, but then we started to go in, like Robert Rose, who's chief strategist at CMI, and we look at, okay, what's going wrong? Okay, we know consistency is a problem. Most enterprises, they don't deliver consistently. That's a big issue. But what's a larger issue? And it's this thing called the content tilt. They don't have one. It's the area of differentiation that you can actually break through all the clutter. And I'll give you a quick example so people can understand. Type cloud computing into Google and see what you come up with. And what you'll see is you've got Amazon and IBM and Salesforce, and they all have their homes for cloud computing. And if you read into the content, you'll quickly get that it's all the same. And nothing against those companies, they're trying. But I'm just under that topic. How are they differentiating themselves so they can cut through all that clutter and be the expert in cloud computing? So you have to have a content tilt. You have to have a differentiation area. Mark Schaefer's got a great book out right now called Cumulative Advantage, and he calls it Finding the Seam. So if you find that opening, and then you have to put all your resources behind that opening and say, that's our thing. That's our, Jay Acunzo calls it a hook, and Andrew Davis calls it a hook. Okay. What's that differentiation? So that's why we start with it in the beginning and strategy, because as you build your content mission and you say, okay, here's my audience, here's what I'm going to deliver, and here's what's in it for the audience. That's great. The content tilt is your why. Why are you doing this in the first place? Why should anyone care that you're doing it? And what seems to happen with a lot of content projects, Amanda, is that it's just too broad, or it's not, there's no hook, there's nothing interesting. So maybe you need to look at a more niche audience. Maybe that's what you need, or the topic area is not small enough for you to be the leading informational expert, or maybe you should focus on a different platform than YouTube or TikTok or where everyone's at. Maybe you should be doing a podcast or a blog or something like that. I don't know. It depends on the situation. But you've got to differentiate in some way. Maybe it's your personality. Maybe it's humorous. Maybe instead of doing a one-on-one interview on your podcast, you do it like a talk show, or you do a monologue series, whatever, right? It's that differentiation area that all performers look at. What makes me different? You have to do that with your content strategy as well. And we just see a lot of startups in the content space, and as well as in the enterprise space, they just don't have it. And then what happens is you do all the work and you create all the content, you try all the distribution methods and promotion, and then you realize, oh, great, no one cares.
Yeah.
This is a problem. So you want to deal with this up front before you spend 2 years creating and distributing content.
So let's talk, you mentioned platforms there. So you say that you should just focus on one channel, one platform to distribute the content. And I think most people are surprised at this, right? Everyone wants to spray it out everywhere. So why is that so important?
Yeah, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Content marketing strategy is about saying no to many things, because what you need to do, and by the way, this is just looking at the data. So if you look at who are the content marketing and media empires out there that we can look for as successful. So you'll say media, New York Times or Financial Times or Huffington Post or BuzzFeed, and then or TED Talks or whatever. And then you might say on the content marketing side, it's Arrow Electronics or it's Red Bull Media House, whatever. Well, what do they all have in common? They didn't diversify too quickly. And that's what we all do. We're all like, oh, great, we're so excited. We do the content marketing strategy, fantastic. And I want to do the blog. I want to do a podcast. I want to do a YouTube series. I want to do it all at the same time. What basically you become, jack of all trades, master of none. You don't build a core audience. And the key to this whole Content Inc. strategy working is you want to build that loyal audience around one platform and one content type. So when I say platform, I mean, okay, is that YouTube, or is it a podcast, or is it on TikTok or Instagram or whatever? And then I say, okay, what's my content type? Is it audio? Is it video? Is it textual plus image? What is it? And that together, that's the whole part of the strategy. Now, that doesn't mean you can't use Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever to promote your content. Those are marketing vehicles that you can absolutely learn, but that's not your home base. You have to figure out your home base. And generally what happens is there is a content creator turned entrepreneur that focuses on one base for about 18 to 24 months when we look at the timetable. So they build their minimum viable audience, and then they probably have one or two revenue areas. And then once they do that, then they can diversify. And I'll give you CMI's example is great. We started with just the blog, and then we said, oh, then we're going to launch the magazine, now digital magazine, chief content officer. Then we're going to launch the event series. That was Content Marketing World. Then 2 years later, we launched the podcast, This Old Marketing. That is how all great media companies do it. I don't care if you can say we're in the social media age and things are different, but they're not. The data says they're not. And we need to focus on one platform first, and then build that audience, and then diversify. And I can keep going, Amanda, but I don't know if I lost you. So. All right. Thank you. Annie says this is valuable. I'm glad to be here. Do we have any more questions? I don't know if we lost Amanda. Okay, we lost Amanda. That's fine. You know what? Because we don't need Amanda. We're just gonna keep moving forward. I'll keep on here until she comes back. Well, we're just gonna keep talking. Do I have some other questions? Let's see. LinkedIn user, who is this? Okay. Me too. I'm just stick with me for a little bit. I just want to get to some questions. All right. So we're talking about, there's a lot of what I'm getting in some of the comments here. There's a lot of concern over the diversify too quickly. Now, this is an issue because if you're with a large company, somebody in the organization is going to say, I want to do the thing on LinkedIn. I want to do something else. That's fine. You can do that, but look at those as marketing channels for the larger platform. And here's a really good example. I know he's been in the news a lot lately. You can love him or hate him. But if you look at a Joe Rogan podcast, Joe Rogan just started with the podcast. Then he diversified into YouTube. He just has Twitter. And that which is fine. He uses those other things as marketing, but it's still about the podcast. And that's where so many enterprises go wrong. So Kevin says, maybe it's a good time to discuss the Browns' awesome draft. I actually went to the draft on Friday night. It was fantastic. I'm really excited about what the Browns are going to do. The book is 368 pages. About how many words is that? It's about 75,000 words, Andy. So it was quite an endeavor. But there are pictures in it. So that's the good news with the whole thing. Hi, Mo.
What's that Browns draft?
You're here.
Oh, I'm here. It looks like we did lose Amanda, unfortunately. Okay. So I hate that. But like I said, I heard Kevin say Browns draft, which meant it was my cue to come in.
I love that. Is that your cue on social media? Like whenever somebody's talking about the Browns draft, you just appear out of nowhere?
No, my cue on social media is whenever anyone says Joe Pulizzi is on live right now. So of course I had to log in.
Oh, it's so good to see you. So do we want to keep going with some questions? I know we were going to keep this to 20 minutes, but we can keep going if we've got some questions.
We see questions. Yes. Here, it looks like we do have a question. It says, this user is trying to get a portfolio company to stop posting all their content in one day. So what do you think, Joe? Should the original content be scheduled or should it be spread out more?
Oh man, this is such an important question. We are still in, and of course I don't know how old you are if you get this reference. We're still in the must-see TV era of delivering content. You need to set what Andrew Davis calls appointment television or appointment content. Does it come out every Thursday morning? Does it come out every Monday morning? Is it Monday evening? What is it? So people can expect it. And I'll just give you some interesting information for a couple of the podcasts that we do. This Old Marketing, which is a weekly news podcast, and Content Inc., which is every Monday that goes out. I used to every other day. Sometimes it'll come out Tuesday, sometimes it'll come out on Monday, and the results weren't great. And as soon as we started to go consistent and people could anticipate that, the numbers started to solidify and go up. And if you look at anyone else, that's how you get this thing to move. And I'll give you a really good example. Go look at a corporate YouTube page sometime. You'll see, we're going to dump all these videos, and all in 1 week, they put the videos out, and then there's nothing for 2 months. And then you'll see some more videos. It just doesn't work. So if you're going to focus on a platform and distribute something, it should be, first of all, it has to be valuable for the audience, but there has to be some kind of predictable schedule, because in order to build a minimum viable audience, you need to set that consistency, and you need to do it for 9 to 12 to 15 months in order to really start to build a loyal audience. So, Mo, that's unfortunately, some people think, hey, if we get the content, let's just distribute it and see what happens. That's not what you want to do. You actually want to have an editorial calendar. You want to focus on, when are we going to deliver this? When's the podcast come out? When does was the blog come out? When are we doing the videos? And those all need to work together at their consistent times. And you want people to look forward to certain kinds of content in certain days.
Well, we have Charlotte who asked, is there a go-to content plan I can steal from somewhere? I am pretty sure you have an answer to that.
Yes. Do I have to pitch out the book? So the book is a Content Inc. strategy that we came up with, which Content Marketing Institute is totally based on, is a 7-step strategy. So you start with sweet spot and content tilt, then you move on to the base, then you have a whole section on audience building. Then we focus on, okay, what of the 10 different revenue types do we want to launch first? Then we look at diversification. Then we add a little bit more revenue opportunities. And then you make a decision. If you're a small content creator, you're going to be at the point where you could actually sell the enterprise. Could you sell it for $1 million, $2 million, whatever your exit strategy is? That's what we want to focus on. And then if you're on the enterprise side, you can say, okay, now it's time to go big. For example, when you look at Red Bull Media House just started with a Formula One racing magazine. That was it. 2007. It was just that. Now Red Bull Media House may be worth more than Red Bull itself. You could actually make that case. So then they went and diversified and said, hey, we're going to create this big media enterprise. So that's when you make that decision. It's 7 steps. The old model that we talked about was a 6-step model. We really worked it around. We changed some of the orders of things. We moved revenue up. We looked heavily at exit strategies, because I don't know doesn't matter where you work, you have to figure out what's your why. Why are you doing this in the first place? And when you get to a certain point, you have to make some decisions, and you want to plan that up front. So that's the plan. You can go online right now and find all about the 2015 one, but in 2 weeks, the real book comes out. and you can get the whole thing.
Well, I am going to toss it back to Amanda, who I see there. However, I see a question from Danielle, which I think is a fantastic question.
Sure.
What can we expect from the Tilt in 2021?
Danielle, thank you for asking. So we are following the Content Inc. model to a T, and we've started with email. Email is our core platform, and we have 2 emails per week that go out, and they're all encompassing emails. So when you subscribe to it, you get an email on Tuesday morning and you get an email on Friday morning, and it has about 1,500, 1,700 words in it. And that's it. That's the content product. And we plan on going for the next 6 months, and that's all we're going to deliver. And we're going to work at building our own minimum viable audience. And then we'll see how it goes. We've got to hit certain subscriber numbers before we diversify, just like we talked about. But then we will be focusing on some research. We've got some content entrepreneur research coming out soon, which I'm really, really excited about. And then fall next year, we'll look at some training education opportunities. But we're all about actionable news for the content entrepreneur. And so far, the reception's been good. Amanda!
Hi!
Where'd you go? You left me. You left me all
I
by myself.
deserted you. I'm sorry. My tech guy, I don't know. I got to fire my tech guy. He's not very good. But I'm back now. Sorry about that, everyone.
That's okay.
Andy asks, what are your thoughts on Verizon selling Yahoo and AOL media businesses? I think this just came out.
Yeah, I just actually hot off the presses, right?
Right.
All right. I got nothing bad to say about Verizon. But what Verizon tends to do with their media properties is they go after something and they put a lot into it for a very short period of time, and then they change directions. And this is the same thing that all content marketers deal with. You have to stay focused on an area. You have to deliver over a consistent period of time, or it's simply not going to work. Like if you're going to do content marketing for 6 months, we've always said at CMI, go do something else. Like if you're looking for significant things to happen in 6 months and audience building, you're just not going to see it. It's going to take 9 to 12 to 15 months to build that audience. I think Verizon was expecting some things to happen quicker than they did with those businesses that they sold off, and it didn't happen as quickly. And they've got shareholders, and they said, the heck with it, we're going a different direction. So I'm not surprised that they did this. It saddens me that they had a plan and they don't stick to it. And they had Sugar String. You remember this, Amanda, years ago. That it was a news site, got into a little bit of trouble. I think it lasted 30 days and they killed it. So this is a thing that seems to happen with large companies. So you have to make sure. And by the way, this is a really good thing to remember. If you work for a larger enterprise, you have to communicate internally and train internally that this takes time. And this content marketing thing is different than other marketing things that we do. And this is why we're doing it. And when we build an asset and have that audience, we can do a lot more things with it. So you have to prepare the way. And some people don't do that in large corporations.
They get a little antsy, right?
Yeah, of course, and I get it, right? That's why CMOs get fired every 17 months. It's like, so you have to set the stage so that doesn't happen. And the first thing you do before you create content and distribute it out as part of your content marketing program, you should first have your internal marketing program. And we've talked about that for years at CMI. You've got to make sure you do that.
All right, Joe, lots of great stuff here. So we got the book coming out. Where can you pre-order it?
So yeah, you can go to content-inc.com, go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whatever. It says it's supposed to be out on May 25th, but you'll see that copy just came in the mail. So that means that books are already being sent right now to Amazon and your favorite bookstore. So I'm very excited. So hopefully by the middle of May, it'll be available. We're just about ready to lock down the audiobook. So that, fingers crossed, should be out by May 25th as well. And so content-inc.com is there. And then if you go to thetilt.com/book-tour, and I wish I probably should have a short link for that, but I don't. So thetilt.com/book-tour, we're doing the Content Inc. book tour on Clubhouse. Mm-hmm. And so we've got 11 dates coming up. We start with Mike Stelzner at 8 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow on Clubhouse. So if you go to Clubhouse and you follow the Content Entrepreneurs group, that's the one that we run at the Tilt, then you can make sure you get all the notifications for that as well. But we've got Michael Stelzner and Ann Hanley this week and how they built their platforms, and then 9 other case studies from the book.
All right. And sign up for the tilt. You can find Joe, Twitter, everywhere, LinkedIn.
I'm at Joe Pulizzi everywhere. Yeah, you'll find me. And you'll find Orange somewhere.
He's everywhere. He'll be everywhere this month. Everywhere.
Yes. I'm taking June off. May is a busy month. June, I'm taking off.
All right. Well, good luck to you for on the re-release of Content Inc. It's a great book. I know from the first one, so I know it'll be the updated one equally exceptional. So thank you so much. Good luck. And we will see everyone here again next Monday. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Amanda. That was great.